Hey, how you guys doing? Hope you had a wonderful weekend. It's snowing here today. It's beautiful, and hope you guys are enjoying the weather wherever you are today. So it's Monday, and I wanted to come on and just chat a little bit about what's been on my mind this week. And how many of you just give me like a like or a love or just say me or raise your hand if you ever watched the movie When Harry Met Sally. Like that was one of my favorite movies from the I think it was the 80s. Yeah. Hi Jamie, hi Meryl. And so if you've ever watched When Harry Met Sally, there is this pivotal scene. It's really funny. There's a scene in the movie where Meg Ryan and the other dude, I forget his name. Please help me out. They're at a restaurant, they're at a diner, and he is sort of criticizing her, Sally, because she's sort of like a stick in the mud, and she has all these like rules, and she's always like kind of being a pain in the butt when she orders her food, and he's sort of like making fun of her for it. And she wanted to dispel the belief that she can't just be spontaneous, she can't have a good time, she can't enjoy things. And she orders whatever she orders. And there's a scene, I think if you know it, then you know it, where she really enjoys her meal. And it's like orgasmic. And she's like actually like pretending to have an orgasm. And when it's Harry, I guess, but I forget the actor's name. He's sitting there in like disbelief. And then the woman at the next table goes, I'll have what she's having, right? Because it's hilarious. We love to see people like over the top, like enjoying food in this like really funny way. But the thing is that how many of us, I mean, I know it's over the top and I know we're not going to do that in a restaurant, but how many of us are actually enjoying the food that we're eating? How many of us are actually like without any guilt, without any morality or worry about the consequences of enjoying that particular snack or meal? How many of us are actually letting ourselves like devour and savor a really delicious meal? I mean, I think it's very few of us. Oh, my poor kitty is meowing. It's okay. Um, and then to contrast that, there's this really, really funny Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this one with Tina Fey. And she's doing like the weekend news report or whatever. And she's literally like has an entire cake right in front of her. And she's clearly stressed out about the news and like whatever's going on. And she's just plowing into that cake and she's like eating it and like kind of looking miserable while she's doing it. And she's just like, it's clearly like stress eating and clearly emotional eating. And she's just like, this is great, you know? And I want to contrast that with the difference between Meg Ryan and Tina Fey. You should eat like Meg Ryan because whether or not she was doing this just to get his goat and just to be funny and to be over the top, but the message behind it is actually really amazing, really smart, which is enjoy your food, have pleasure with food. So many of us do not do this. Why? Because of dieting culture, because we've been taught to message or to conflate pleasure with eating with all of these other terms that are sort of, pejoratively speaking, negative words. Like they're, like lazy and indulgent and hedonistic and like whatever else. Like we have been taught to not actually like be allowed to really find pleasure in food. And it really speaks to this larger issue of us as human beings finding a conflict about pleasure in general. Like we don't feel like we can just have pleasure with abandon, that there's some sort of guilt associated with it or some sort of consequence associated with it. And I certainly understand that a lot because this is how we're sort of indoctrinated, right? But what would happen if we were to actually give ourselves permission to slow down, to enjoy what we're eating, to remove the morality piece of it, remove the black and white thinking, and actually just see what's in front of us and see, is this food like fueling my body? Is this food sparking joy? Okay, let's Marie Kondo it. Is this food sparking joy? Because when we're living in a scarcity mindset or we're living with this duality of good and bad with food, it sets up this overarching sort of guilt when it comes to our choices, or worry or fear, like maybe it's not the right thing, maybe I did the wrong thing. And that actually prevents us from enjoying what's right in front of us, because we're so in our heads about whether we're doing the right thing, how many bites we should have, maybe I should have chosen that thing instead. But when we're actually like tuning into what sparks joy and what's going to give us comfort and pleasure, and also fuel our bodies, right? It's because obviously we want to fuel our bodies, but not to the point where we feel guilty if we ever touch a piece of candy, or if we make, a choice at a restaurant that maybe has more calories than something else, but it's really, really what's calling to you that day. And I think so much of us have been brought up in dieting culture where if we open that door even just a little bit, that means like it's over. This dieting phase is over. I broke my diet. I'm going to start again in 3 months or whatever it is, as opposed to like really tapping into what do you want right now to eat? Why are you wanting that? Like that's an important thing to think about too. Really getting in touch with if it's physical hunger or an emotional need that's not being met, perhaps, because certainly with the Tina Fey scenario here, they're over exaggerating this whole idea of comfort eating and of stress eating and emotional eating. Like she's diving into this cake. I'll send you a gif of it after. It's really funny. And she's not enjoying it though. Like she should be enjoying that cake, right? She chose to eat it. She's diving into it, but we get the sense that she's not at all enjoying it. And I think that once we allow a extreme awareness, like presence of mind and pleasure, then your brain gets a chance to get a sense that it's being satiated and that you have a sense of satisfaction. And in a lot of ways, that actually stops us from going above and beyond that. So I know a lot of you are listening to this and you're like, well, that's not me. That's not true. If I start, I'm just going to eat the whole thing. I don't trust myself. I can't eat this. I don't allow myself to eat this. And I think it does all of us a disservice, because when we're living in scarcity mindset or dieting mindset, our diet's just the next sort of Monday away, right? But if you have an abundance mindset with food, then you get to choose when you want something special and when you don't. And as hard as it is to really embody and to understand, because we were so fear-based, and believe me, it took me years to even allow myself to try some of these techniques and methods. But when I did, I was able to really tune into like for instance, I don't eat ice cream anymore at all. Like I used to eat it every single night. It was my treat at the end of the day. And now I don't eat it, not because I'm not allowing myself to eat it, but because I've lost the desire for it. It's not in my mind anymore. And if it is or was, I would eat it. And I would know and trust that I would eat just enough to get that taste of something that I wanted, to enjoy it, to find pleasure in it, and then I would stop. It took a long time, but there's a lot of these intuitive and mindful eating techniques could go a long way in helping us trust that we're going to fuel our bodies, both with healthy foods and balanced foods, but that we can also trust ourselves to have pleasure and enjoyment with food as well. And it doesn't mean that it's going to open up this Pandora's box of constant overeating or binge eating or what have you. And I just invite you in to learn more about mindful and intuitive eating here in this space. There's a lot of free options out there. Of course, you guys know I have my free course, bit.ly/7days slow, that you're always welcome to join. But I just wanted to have this conversation today because while both of these are sort of parodies, like, obviously having an orgasm at a diner while eating isn't realistic, isn't really what I'm saying in terms of pleasure, but also, we don't want to be diving headfirst into a cake because we're feeling stressed and emotional or what have you. And so I think that there is this middle ground, especially from this other perspective of like, stress eating, let's just dive into a cake. Like, obviously there's some self-soothing techniques that are missing, or that there's some void that's not being paid attention to, where food becomes much more important or much more a piece of the self-soothing puzzle than if we had other techniques in place, which, I this is a lot of what I do, is teaching these types of techniques and learning how to circumvent the binge or the emotional eating loop by tapping into what's happening in the body and also in the brain, emotionally, psychologically, so that you can make the most informed decision in that moment. Like, oh, I'm only eating this cake because I'm feeling really, really stressed, or I just had an argument with somebody, and what can you do instead, right? So I teach the what you can do instead piece. And it's not that if you do end up eating a cake that there's anything bad about you, or there's something like it of course you're going to want to eat that cake. Of course you are, because we're hard driven, we're, hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and we want that immediate reward, right? So just some food for thought. Please put your comments below if you've seen both of these if you've seen When Harry Met Sally. And please, what's his name? Billy something. I forget his, Billy Crystal. Yeah! Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. So if you've seen those, tell me what you think. Tell me if you understand this contrast that I'm talking about, where one can actually embody and truly enjoy food and have a lot of pleasure with it and not feel guilty, and also bring a lot of trust that if there was an extra indulgence or what have you, that it doesn't mean that the rest of the book has been written. Do you know what I mean? I used to see this a lot in my business, in my old job, where it's like, once they've had one thing that they sort of feel conflicted about, they're worried that it's going to set that precedence to just go on this over and over and over again. And each and every day, each and every meal, we have an opportunity to reset and to re-examine what's happening right inside our bodies, which may actually be different than the narratives that you have set up for yourself. So really think about that. A lot of what is keeping you stuck are the stories that you're telling about yourself as eaters that you really truly believe, but maybe, just maybe, they're not true anymore. So food for thought. But next time you go to a restaurant and you order something that you know in the past has been something that really lights you up, that is delicious, I want to give you permission to truly enjoy that. I want you to remove guilt and morality, all the ethics from the eating, all the worry about the consequences. And I challenge you to stay in the moment and just truly pay attention to what you're eating, why you're eating it, what pleasure you're getting out of it. Is it a sensory sort of pleasure, like in terms of mouthfeel, or is it the flavors that are lighting you up? Or is it the way that your tummy feels after? Like after I have like butternut squash soup with a big piece of peasant bread or something, I just feel like so satisfied. You know what I mean? So these are the questions you want to be asking yourself. As always, if you know where to reach me, if you need any one-on-one support. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed that little comparison. Let's enjoy some food, okay? And enjoy what we're eating. And at the same time, continue to process and understand the root cause of why we're eating in the first place. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we are allowed to have pleasure with food. And in fact, we're one of the only species on Earth that has the cognition, that has the ability to recognize that we can find pleasure and actually use that to enhance our experience of eating, which is pretty amazing, right? You're not seeing that lion been like, oh yeah, that elk was so good. You're not seeing them like, picking their teeth and like been like, because they don't have that same sort of sensory process that we do, where we can be really, really aware of all the different places that we can experience pleasure with food. So that's my spiel for today. I hope you guys are having a great Monday. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.